the grand and also quite cruel Leader Fan Radio Network.
It's frustrating.
And KFAN. That's KFAN.com. 2 minutes and 38 seconds past the hour, 3 o'clock Central Daylight Time. We welcome you back to a Friday Football Beast edition of the Bumper to Bumper program on a kind of a cruel Friday, right? Temperature-wise, I think we're basically mid to upper 30s with Calcutta Clipper winds reducing the wind chill to about 8 above. Beautiful late March day here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. My name is Dan Barreiro, host of the program. Gaardsy is in Sacramento, as most of you know by now. He's going to join for a quick hit about 3:30 or so this afternoon. So about a half hour from now, Brett Blakemore is back in that chair as well. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line is open as always at 64686. That's 64686. Excuse me, just had a cup of coffee first. We're delighted you're here for the ride today. It is, here's my proposition. Here's my question for our very erudite and sophisticated sports audience. If your choices are make history only to be embarrassed beyond belief in the making of that history, are you interested in making history at all? Would it be better to not make that history? Would you be what's the saying? What's the saying I'm looking for? It has to do with trying. What's a good trying? As in, trying to do something. What's the saying I'm looking for? Where
it's better to try and fail than to not try at all.
Is that the saying?
Something like that.
All right. Yeah. Well, I know we've got some folks who are going to be able to give me good examples of exactly what I'm scrambling to try to find. Because I'm thinking about this last night, tossing and turning as well. Can't get it out of my head. What happened to the University of Nebraska men's basketball team in the Sweet 16? And I'm thinking about a really decent chap named Fred Hoiberg, of course, who used to be here, Minnesota Timberwolves player, and then he also did some front office work as well, if I'm not mistaken. Now, head coach, Nebraska. And Nebraska goes on an unprecedented run for the school in school history. The football school becomes a basketball school, just like Indiana. The basketball school becomes a football school. Terrific season. And this Husker team makes history. It wins not one, but 2 NCAA tournament games. Program was 0-8 all time in the NCAA before this memorable run. Now, the memorable run was going to probably end sometime. I don't think there was a great chance that the Huskers were going to win the title. And philosophically speaking, I think it would be fairly easy to accept that hell of a run. Whether it ended last night or might have ended in the Elite Eight, certainly if they went to the Final Four, it'd be a hell of a run. But what if it ends the way it did? What if it ends with your team only having 4 players on the court in the final minute of a game still very much in doubt? 4. The motion picture Hoosiers. What's the scene for Norman Dale where he's out of players, in part because a couple of them basically left because he was so demanding of them and he's also trying to make an example of another one. And a player, one of his starters fouls out, and the referee comes over and says, "Coach, need a fifth player on the team." I think Norman Dale said, "My team's on the court." Momentous, dramatic. I'm going to make my statement, even if it costs us. I'm not going to go easy on this player. He's going to learn the hard way. But in this case, Fred Hoiberg didn't consciously say to the referees, "My team's on the floor." A fifth player, it appears in the video I've seen, is trotting towards the scorer's table, presumably trying to get in the game, but the ball has already been inbounded. Ends up being a touchdown pass that leads to a basket and I believe a three-point play, effectively ending Nebraska's chances of winning. I don't know how often that's happened in the Big Dance. A team having, not out of necessity, but just out of negligence, coaching malpractice. Can't happen. 4 players on the court. It can't have. I'm not going to say it's never happened, but I don't think it's happened very often. You can't lose in any more cataclysmic fashion than the way Nebraska lost under those conditions. I mean, it's unthinkable. 1, 2, 3, 4. Get out there. We need 5. It can't happen, especially with the game on the line. And yet it did. So I'll ask the question again. If it's going to end the way it ended, would your preference be to not get there at all? To say, well, whatever history we made, whatever adulation we got, whatever satisfaction we derived from the run, it's gone. Because we did something that, at the very least, is historic. Maybe never done before in a major college basketball game of such significance. Do or do not, there is no try. I think that's the way Yoda put it. There are a couple of others that came up. But I'm just asking. I'm not taking a position yet. I want to hear from the audience. Bradshaw Bryant, inbox, KFAN text line is actually what I'm looking for, 64686. Forget the inbox. We're past inbox stages. We are now to the text line. Does it erase all of that came before? When it becomes, it's not just you lose on a lucky shot, or you even lose on a good shot, or a missed assignment, right? Player goes back door. Those sorts of things, I think, philosophically speaking, we don't love, but you go, well, that stuff happens. Somebody misses 2 straight free throws, whatever. You can't lose in any more painful fashion than not even giving yourselves a chance with 5 players on the court, instead having only 4. To his credit, Fred did what I'm not surprised he did. He took full responsibility for it. So because a couple players were asked about it post game, and he said it's on me. I don't know if any rules were circumvented because somebody said, maybe even Fred said, well, is it the responsibility of the refs to be sure there's 5 people out there? I don't think it is, but I don't know what the rules are on that. I have no idea. Hey, you're short one. My guess is it's never come up because it's just so insane. Now, remember, this did happen, I believe. Didn't this happen in a regular season game to the Minnesota Timberwolves where D'Angelo Russell was supposed to be out on the court and didn't know it? And a lot less was at stake, but I think we even talked about it a few weeks ago. It might have even been in the anniversary of it. But in a major college basketball tournament game, it can't get, that's where I say the football, in this case, sports gods, basketball gods, they can be so giving and so nurturing, but then they can take the rug out from under you, man. The same ones, for whatever reason, said, oh, that's it. Party's over. you're not only going to lose, you're going to lose in no small measure because you guys forgot to have a fifth player on the court. How do you like me now? How do you feel about that?
To your biggest rival, no less.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
To an Iowa team that hasn't been, as far as the Elite Eight, in forever, I think. Low seed as well. So a lot of good texts are already coming in. That's where I want to start. I know we'll get Gaardsy's view on that, and then we'll get a quick scouting report on Gophers UCLA, a game you can hear on the Fan at the conclusion of this program. We're going the distance right until 6:30 today, and then
we're 3-hour tour. We're out at 6.
Oh, I had no idea.
For Gaardsy.
Again?
Uh-huh.
So they're having a half-hour pregame?
Yep.
Good for him.
Half-hour pregame.
I have no problems with that. But I'm always the last to know. I mean, it'd be nice for somebody to tell me. I'm sure Abbott will tell me it was on the schedule. He just emailed.
That's probably what
all of us. But I mean, who's to say whether that is indeed the case? All right, good, even better. Out at 6 o'clock. I think opening tap is scheduled for about 6:30. By the way, I see a women's Sweet 16 game. Vandy, a 2 seed in Fort Worth against 6 seed Notre Dame. Looks like a nice ball game. About 6.5 minutes to go, and the 6 seed leads Vandy 57-51. We'll keep an eye on that game. We'll also keep an eye on the latest regarding a Tiger Woods rollover crash that officials say he is involved in. I'll double check to see if we have when we're going to have any new information on that particular story as well. Let's get a quick pause in now, and we'll get to some of your texts when we return.
Never miss your chance to know what the latest sports news is in town, chances to win tickets, or just knowing what's going on with all your favorite KFAN shows. You can follow KFAN 1003 on all of our social channels like Instagram, TikTok, and X. You can stay connected and follow the leader for sports that matter, the Fan.
58.8 seconds to play in Houston, Gunbelt tight Texas. Iowa's Cale Combs stood on the baseline to inbound the ball as his teammates pointed towards, I'm going to mangle this pronunciation. If you know it, let me know. Alvaro Folgueras, who hit the game-winning shot in his team's upset, for the record, over 1 seed Florida on Sunday, who was racing down the court wide open before he scored on a critical layup and completed a three-point play to extend the Iowa lead to 6. And though it appeared a Nebraska player was trying to check into the game before the shot, he was too late. So a critical three-point play in the final minute of Iowa's 77-71 victory over the Huskers. And that's the story. Hoiberg saying, put that on me. It was a miscommunication, and I'm the head coach. So put that one on me. I've never been in a situation like that. I know they always count to make sure there's not 6. I don't know the rule on that with 4. But yeah, again, it was a miscommunication, and unfortunately it happened. But as far as the rule, I've never been a part of anything like that. So I'll restate the question from the start of the show if you're just joining us. A magnificent, historic run for Nebraska to even get to the Sweet 16. But if it ends the way it ended, with a sort of historical dysfunctional moment that's going to go down in infamy in NCAA lore, are you better off not even getting to the Sweet 16? You're better off not even getting into the tournament. Lots of questions or lots of texts coming in. As an Iowa fan, that game was so delicious. Never liked the mayor when he was at Iowa State. Hate Nebraska. When I watched the play, I saw the guy at scores tables the play developed. Good job of recognizing it by the players. Go Hawks. That's from James in Fancato. Yeah, it was very well identified. And you can't, I mean, as embarrassing as it is, if Iowa doesn't take advantage of it, it's nowhere near as big a story, right? If, in other words, they just bring the ball in and somebody misses a shot and Nebraska is able to either call a timeout or just dodge the bullet, it's nowhere as big a deal. Insult to injury was that the other team took as full advantage out of it as is possible. 763 guy, always trying to localize the story. The Vikings have been known to try the opposite technique of having too many players as opposed to too few. Don't blame me for bringing it up, but it's part of our history. Too many men on the field. Now, my inclination is it's more embarrassing if it happens during the play, right? But given the significance of the penalty, you could say it's a distinction without a difference because it still cost the Vikings in a very significant, well, with the game to be won or lost, let's face it, crucial situation. People will forget about this 4 men, not like with the Weber timeout. I don't agree at all. Now, if they think more about the Weber timeout, I believe that came later in the tournament, did it not? Wasn't that a Final Four faux pas? But I don't think people are going to forget about this at all. In fact, I think this one feels more egregious to me because the instinct of a player forgetting that they're out of timeouts, calling a timeout, bad move, but not unprecedented. That's for sure. Principal guy, I believe I would still prefer my team make it to that moment or made it to that moment. Sports are cruel. Even at the pinnacle, they have a way we can be embarrassed. In 20 years, the players will laugh about trying to win with 4, but they will always be Nebraska's first Sweet 16 team. That's principal guy, but also a former coach. Dan, I don't think the player needed to check in at the table for Iowa. He just should have run onto the court. Chuck from Medina. That's my understanding. In the situation on an inbounds play, now, I guess the only question is, well, as long as he was the guy who was on the court before the timeout, before the ball was inbounded, then that's the sad part. There's no trotting out to the scorer's table. It's now the question would be, was he not in the game previously, and then he would have, and they waited too long for that change? Then it should have been, and this is expecting a lot in short notice, whoever was on the court before either the timeout or the ball was put in bounds on the previous possession, that's the guy who all he has to do is come back out on the court, I do believe. We may have some officials who will give us more detail on that. I would also argue that losing to Vanderbilt this is one of those dictated texts that's going to have to be resent because it's not making any sense. Let's get to a couple more here before we say hello to Gaardsy. A lot of 12 men on the field text coming in, man. People
it
don't
just writes themselves.
They just don't forget. Brett, why don't they change on the fly in soccer? It works well enough in hockey. I don't see why it wouldn't work in other sports. You can't change on the fly in soccer?
No.
Didn't think so.
It's more like baseball where you're out and you're done. That's it.
Let me scroll down and get a few more here. Perhaps Fred Hoiberg was indeed channeling Norman Day on the anniversary of Gene Hackman's death and decided to go with 4 players. That's Mark from Lakeville. Everybody's had fun with that joke, unfortunately for him. Dan, it's a bad way to lose. However, Nebraska did win their first tournament game when they beat Troy. They were the only men's power conference team without a tournament win. Dan, referees are responsible for ensuring teams have the right number of players on the court as part of their overall responsibility of the game. The crew in that game should not have inbounded the ball. Those officials will not be getting a shot at working the Final Four based on that one play. I need more detail on that. I need confirmation or denial on that particular issue. 5 words, 12 men in the huddle. There's another one. Not our biggest basketball rival at all. Football, yes, not basketball. Nebraska just got competitive. If Nebraska would have played better in the second half, you can argue they wouldn't have even been in that situation. Well, yeah, but that's more generic and philosophical. That's stuff that you could say about almost any win or loss, right? It's true, but it's now immaterial. You got to that place, and now you're in the history books for reasons that I think will live on decade after decade. Officials have a responsibility to make sure there's not 6 out there. I've seen it in high school. But as Hoiberg points out, the question wasn't whether they had 6 or too many. The question is whether they had enough. Dan, it's better to have loved and lost than never loved at all. That's his version of the Yoda philosophical point about trying. Sorry, but that was a fireable offense. I'm confused how Hoiberg doesn't know exactly what 5 are on the floor. Maybe just a lapse in judgment. Yeah, I don't know how you don't. I don't know how you. I would even argue the head coach has got a bunch of things to think about. You almost think. Well, I was about to say you think, well, you got to have an assistant coach who's always paying attention to how many are on the court. But given how rarely this sort of thing, if ever, happens, maybe there was never a feeling that you had to designate someone. Okay, you're in charge of that. Make sure, because 99.999% of the time, it's not going to be relevant. It's not going to be necessary. Better to burn out than to fade away, writes Tom from Savage. That's a burnout. There's no question about that. Nebraska blunder still better than 41 donut. That might be true. Is it better to have 4 men on the court or 12 men in the huddle? Ask Brad Childress. More embarrassing for Freddie, 4 players in the court or jacking up 15 3-pointers in the fourth to get more ping pong balls. Well, apples and oranges again, because more embarrassing, 4 players in the court. More egregious, obviously trying to tank by throwing up 15 pointers in the fourth quarter to try to get more ping pong balls. They're completely different subjects, I would say. Need an updated term for the defense. Box. It's called box and one. In this case, of course, because you only have 4 out there, it would be box and none. Iowa fan here, I approve. But what does he approve of? Does he approve of the proposition, the better to not even get there if this is the way you're going to lose? Or Iowa fan approves. Yeah, obviously, because he received the just desserts. Do or do not, there is no try. That is Yoda. If at first you don't succeed, try again. That's the flim-flam version. I can't promise I'll try, but I'll try to try, from the late, great Homer Simpson. I can't promise I'll try, but I'll try to try. A lot of loved and lost and never loved at all. Nothing ventured. Another version is nothing ventured, nothing gained. Yeah, I get that. That works as well. Maybe we'll get Gaardsy's view on that. Keep the text coming. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line is 64686. The uglydeck.com guest lineup will include Ben Gessling in about an hour, and Lavelle, who I'm going to be all over on a number of subjects. He is scheduled for 5:30 this afternoon. A lot of other controversies to get into, including another baseball question that I need to propose to the audience and maybe get some reaction to as well. But let's get a quick mini scouting report one last time before the game. Gophers and the highly touted and heavily favored UCLA Bruins. Pre-game show, I'm now learning, will start at 6 with the opening face-off just past 6:30 right here. All on the FM leader, 100.3 The Fan, and your very favorite app, the iHeartRadio free app.
There's nothing like live hockey. You can experience the Minnesota Wild in action at Grand Casino Arena all season long, including Wild Canucks April 2nd, Wild Kraken April 7th. You can secure your seats now, wild.com/tickets to join the excitement, wild.com/tickets.
Gaardsy is back with us for We in the Business, the radio business, referred to as a quick hit. One last scouting report, preview of Gopher women's basketball tournament play, Sweet 16 play, against quite likely, or certainly quite possibly, the best team in the tournament, UCLA, the Bruins. So I'm assuming word got to you in Sacramento about what happened to the mayor last night in Houston. When I say the mayor, I mean, of course, Freddie Hoiberg. Were you watching it live? Yeah.
I was watching it.
Can it get any more cataclysmic than that?
No. And I immediately texted my 5th grade coaching staff because we had a similar situation happen to us in the game where we ran a play offensively with only 4 players on the court, and somehow actually the guy got fouled, and we got free throws out of it. But I basically did it to let us off the hook and said we shouldn't feel that bad because that's embarrassing when you look out there and there's only 4 guys. Unbelievable. It really kind of summed up the night after, like, Nebraska had nothing after Iowa kind of got themselves back into the game. They just couldn't do anything in the last 7 or 8 minutes.
Very true. And the question I propose, I think I know what your answer is going to be, but I'll propose it nevertheless. If the end, let's just say, we know they went on a historic run, right? Nebraska the men's basketball team had exactly 0 victories in the NCAA tournament all time coming into this tournament. Right. I think 0-8. They win 1, and then they win again. So they reached the Sweet 16. If the end, because you're going to lose, you're probably not going to win a national championship, right? If you're Nebraska, I don't think it was likely. And I think everybody philosophically will come to terms with that and say, okay, yeah, it was going to probably end at some point, but man, what a run. If it ends the way it did end, are you actually better off not having gained entry and made history to the Sweet 16 at all? Is it that cruel? Is it that savage? Because I'm sure it's happened before, but I don't think it's happened very often in the big dance at the Sweet 16.
No, I don't remember it ever happening. I think at some point you come to appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And I know Fred even tried to say that in his post game last night. Tried to say when we hang that banner next year, it's going to be a heck of a party and we're all going to be very proud. But it's just so hard to get there that when you blow it like that, Nebraska may never be in that situation again with this coach. I mean, they just might not, because it's really hard to get there. So I'm sure this one will haunt them for probably forever, unless they somehow do get back there and go further and, maybe even make it to a Final Four. Maybe that's how you finally get over it. But I get what you're saying. You will, of course, remember the run and you'll remember the season, and they had a great year. But that was especially too because it's Iowa. I think that factors into it as well.
It's another layer.
Iowa and Nebraska.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to live with that.
And
it was one of your biggest rivals.
Beyond that, your opponent maximizes the gaff. Right, touchdown pass, receiver breaks free and won a 3-point play that basically cements the victory. I think it's going to be very, very. I mean, that's going to go down in the record books. Now, somebody said, "Well, it's not like the Chris Webber timeout." I said, "Well, I think it's the same, except for the fact that the Webber timeout came in the title game, right? That's the difference. This is a Sweet 16 game, so at the there was more at stake then. But for being unusual, for being maybe even unprecedented, I think this is going to be right up there with some of every all-time Big Dance gaff story is now going to include the time that, unlike with Norman Dale, where he consciously decided to go out there with only 4 men on the floor, Fred Hoiberg and the Nebraska Cornhuskers were left with 4 players on a key inbounds play with the game on the line. You can't make it up.
It's a little bit like 12 men in the huddle, too. You just say that. You just say 12 men in the huddle, and everybody knows.
Yes.
That's true. Everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. And, yeah, I wonder, and I was thinking about that one because I wonder whose fault it was. I know Hoiberg said I'm the head coach, so it's on me. But you wonder who didn't put someone where or who didn't communicate what and why they just had the 4 guys. That's one I'm sure we'll learn at some point. Some reporter down there will get to the bottom of that, but I'd have a hard time sleeping. And they were down 3, obviously, so they still would have had to get a stop.
True.
And they still would have had to figure everything out there, but you gave yourself no chance at coming back once that happened.
So you have, I think, enough referee buddies and sources. Do we have any, I couldn't find it anywhere online today, any kind of clarity on what the referees, if any, if they have any responsibility in that sort of situation? Are they obligated? Because Fred, after the game, said, well, they're obligated if we got 6 out there it's their job to make sure we don't have that many, one too many. But he asked openly, well, I don't know if there's anything that any responsibility they have if we don't have enough out there. And I've had a couple texters claim that they think that is part of what a referee is supposed to do. I have absolutely no idea. Do you?
I don't. I do know that was part of the discussion today on all the ESPN shows.
Right.
And I'm actually surprised. I'm surprised that the refs do help them with the six
I am too.
on the court.
I agree with you.
Because Stephen A. said it today, and I agree with him totally. That's not their job.
Shouldn't be.
Their job is not to count your players and tell you. Their job is to run the game and ref the game. Because I think Seth Greenberg was saying usually they will give you some help on the 6. He didn't know if there was a thing on the 4 because it's just so rare.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's their job. They've got enough things to worry about. It's your team.
Yeah,
as harsh as that might sound, it's your team. It's your operation. You're in charge of your group. Make sure you have the right number.
Ooh. By the way, a Sweet 16 update on the women's bracket, or in the women's bracket, that you might be aware of. A good game all the way down to the wire between Notre Dame and Vandy. Vandy's a 2 seed, and the Fighting Irish win it 67-64 to advance to the Elite 8. 12 men in the huddle. It is amazing how fans work, because I, believe it or not, didn't bring it up. I wasn't Danny Downer. It was no way part of why I brought up the Nebraska situation yesterday at all. And within minutes, I mean, we were deluged with 12 men in a huddle quips, snarky comments, or reminders. And what it does underscore is that the degree to which this stuff, any of these sorts of gaffes, stay with people, right? They just don't, especially if there's a lot on the line, and there obviously was for the Vikings, and there certainly was for Nebraska yesterday. That's why I think it's going to take a long time to get very philosophical about this one, because this one to me feels even more rare than 12 men in the huddle. You know, I mean, I don't remember. Didn't Richard Pitino have to play? No, Richard Pitino had trouble beating a team that was down to 4 players. Wasn't that in a holiday tournament?
It was down to 3 players.
3?
It was down to 3 players. Because they didn't have any. A bunch of guys got fouled out or tossed. I can't remember. There might have been a scrum. I can't remember exactly what happened. Yes, but and the Gophers had a big lead, and then it got down. It dwindled a little bit. No, and you think about all the Nebraska fans that made the trip to Houston. I'm sure a lot of them drove.
Yeah.
Even the Florida fan, the jacked up, muscle bound Florida fan that went viral last week ended up driving there because he already had tickets for the Florida deal. Not driving. He ended up going. I don't know how he got there. And he's cheering for Nebraska, so yeah, it's a long drive back. It's a long drive back to Kearney or Lincoln or Omaha from Houston when you're thinking about staying there the whole weekend.
No question about that. All right. Any final thoughts as we prepare? I didn't even know this. So pregame show, unlike Fallness, you're doing a full 30-minute pregame show. Is that correct? 6 o'clock?
Yes, we always do a full 30.
Yeah.
Games on the Fan, we haven't always picked up the whole pregame, but that's cool that we're picking it up.
Yeah, funny.
Yeah, full 30.
Fallness has Fallness ever done a 30 in his life?
Not that I can recall.
Not that I
remember.
I mean, I'm just asking. I mean, I'm sure there are researchers out there who can take care of it. So we're out at 6, and opening kickoff scheduled just past 6:30. So any other interesting tidbits or nuggets you've picked up that might be of interest in previewing this thing for rubes who are going to try to pay attention this evening?
Well, the undertone I've picked up from people that are following UCLA is, and this is a really strange one to me, I think it shows you how good UCLA has been for the last couple of years and how dominant they've been this season, where their average margin of victory is close to 30 points. It's 28.9 points. They've won 27 games in a row. They're being graded, the Bruins, on how they didn't blow out their first 2 opponents enough in the first 2 games, that they kind of meandered with Cal Baptist for a half and then outscored them 52-9, by the way, in the second half, and how they didn't run up the score on Oklahoma State. It's just weird. Like I was watching some Big Ten Network stuff today, and they were even talking about UCLA didn't look that sharp last week. And I'm sitting there going, Glenn Mason, are you nuts? So I don't know if they're going to have a chip on their shoulder as a 33-1 number one seed, having maybe a little bit of an afterthought given how UConn has played. That's been something different the last 2 days in terms of something that I hadn't really observed until the last 48 hours or so. Just the overall vibe around UCLA apparently not being dominant enough.
Man.
Like I said, their average margin to victory has been 30 points this year, and they got here pretty easily.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
Maybe that's boredom.
So do they have a chip on their shoulder? Does the number one UCLA? Yes, everybody doubted us.
Oh, that's
as
too good.
18.5-point favorites. So that's what's been weird. So I am curious. But if that is true, maybe they're not playing that well. Then here's your opportunity. Tap into it. Put a little scoreboard pressure on them.
Sure.
Make things difficult for them tonight. Who knows? It's March for a reason.
Well, that's the old deal is that if a team is very, very dominant, does it even know how to handle a close game because it's had very little experience in it? There are some teams so good that they render that whole question moot because nobody catches up with them. We'll see how it goes this afternoon. Now, were you on the day when somebody texted to us? I can't remember if I talked to you about this or to Blakemore. We kept getting texts from somebody claiming that there was this phantom video of the UCLA coach basically talking about, we know we're going to get to the Elite Eight, blah, blah, blah. The indication was that was some sort of backhanded condescension against, I guess in this case, the Gophers. But the person who texted it couldn't really ever find evidence of it. So have you heard anything about this, or does this fall into the classification of a complete myth that somehow is, as rare as this is, has gotten out on a little bit, at least on social media?
Well, I will text it to Brett Blakemore right now, and maybe he can pull it up on the board.
Okay.
Because I did, and I haven't watched it, but I'll just read it. I'll read. Okay. Because somebody did find it.
They did.
Off our conversation. It was you and me.
Okay.
Somebody did find it, and she's talking to Corey Close, the longtime UCLA coach, is talking to team and supporters at the watch party.
Okay.
And says, here's the tweet. UCLA's finish as the number one seed in the Sacramento Regional, played out as they expected, and LSU as the number 2 seed is exactly what Lauren Betts said she wanted this morning at breakfast. Lauren Betts is their All Big Ten Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. Mm-hmm. And so they're talking about that they're happy that LSU is their 2 seed because that's apparently who they wanted to face. So I don't know if it's that
maybe that's so people are turning that into
or dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's a long way from here to there.
That's what I
say. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I learned. That's what I learned about that.
I'm guessing that's indirect enough that even Dawn Plitzowite, who you say does look for grievance if she can use it to her benefit in getting her team fired up, might not think it's worth trying to pursue.
I mean, I rule nothing out with Dawn. In terms of slights.
So she's Jordan-like in that regard. She'll go hard on whatever she can find. Okay.
Yes.
Right. Good to know.
That's how you got to keep your edge.
Okay.
That's how you keep your edge.
Yeah. All right. So tip-off just after 6:30, correct?
You got it. Yeah.
Perfect. Pre-game show will start at 6. What do we got in the pregame? Anything controversial or anything big?
We always talk to Dawn, and then we also have an interview with the associate head coach, general manager Jason Jeske, who does like the deep dive on the opponent and what's important, what stands out about the opponent every night. He's great. He's a good dude. He's really helpful for my purposes, and so we do those too. So it'll be good. It'll be our normal pregame.
Have fun tonight, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Gaardsy.
All right, thank you. Yep, we'll see you.
Gaardsy helping us out from Dateline, Sacramento, California. And as we mentioned, pregame show for the Gopher women's game against the UCLA Bruins, the top seed. The game itself scheduled for 6:30 tonight. On the 4 players on the floor thing, somebody texted, and I think there is actually some truth to this because I think by rule, there is no rule that requires you to play 5 players. There is obviously a rule that forbids you from playing 6 or 7 or 8 at the same time. Because we've seen games, I mentioned the Gopher game, where they end up going against a team that's left with 3 players on the court, and we still struggled against them. So that would indicate to me that the referee should have no responsibility in that situation. Now, I doubt he assumed that, Nebraska wants to go with only 4 here, but I would say if it's not illegal to play fewer than 5, and it's clearly not, then you're on your own. It's not up to the refs. I don't think it should be their responsibility at all. A lot of people are asking for Tiger Woods updates. I'll give you what I have. If you have anything later, just let me know, Brett Blakemore. But I still don't have, I guess, a lot of detail beyond what we knew for about the last hour, that Woods was involved in a rollover crash on Jupiter Island after about 1 o'clock Central Time this afternoon. And the Martin County Sheriff's Office said the crash occurred near 281 Beach Road, which is apparently fairly close to his home. I see what looks to be the photo of the vehicle. It's a Range Rover on its side. There are police around. I don't see any ambulances around as well. But if you have any new information on condition, do we have anything on that he's okay?
Well, here's what I've got from this is from the article from CBS 12 out there in Florida. According to a source at Martin County Fire Rescue, it was a 2-car crash. One vehicle was a rollover, which, looking at the picture, I think rollover, it looks like a tip over more than a rollover to me, which is different. But then the important bit, one person is stable while another refused to go to the hospital. Martin County Fire Rescue said there are no injuries to anyone. So to me, grain of salt here. We'll wait for more. But from the information that we've got right now, it looks like there's probably a collision where a car tipped over on its side, and everyone is mostly fine.
Okay.
I think we'll be okay.
That'd be the most important part of it. Obviously, most people are aware the serious crash he was involved in. This goes back to, it was February of 2021. Open fractures in his leg, broken bones in his foot. And that was a single car crash, if you recall, on that occasion. A very serious crash. I remember when we talked about it at the time, based on the pictures we saw, it was stunning to me that he didn't die in that particular. In that case, it was a 1-car, and at the time he'd been recovering from his 5th back surgery, which had taken place the year before, and I believe he was, shall we say, going a bit faster than he was supposed to be going. In fact, incredibly faster on that particular road as well. So if we get new info, we will pass it along to you, because he just returned to that. What do we call the kind of golf that he's been playing recently? TGL,
what we call it.
Yeah, and he just returned, didn't he? Was it yesterday or the day before?
I believe it was on Tuesday. He returned for the championship match.
Okay.
So yeah, it was the first time I've seen him play. He was recovering from an Achilles and back surgery, so he hasn't played in like a year. He's trying to ramp up for the Masters in a couple weeks, and hopefully for Gaardsy's sake, I don't know how Gaardsy's going to go on. His guy.
That is his guy.
Later today.
Yeah.
So hopefully for Gaardsy and for Tiger, it all works out and he can play in Augusta.
And this, and then he's pretty much said he's going to play in the Seniors Tour, correct? I thought he said that as well.
Well, you can ride in a cart.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. Bradshaw and Bryant text line is 64686. If you want to react to anything Gaardsy and I got into, I know we've got some referees or former referees getting in on the continuing subject about what obligation the refs have in a situation in which one team comes out onto the court with only 4 players. I will say again that, as a texter did, that the Chris Webber phantom timeout call when his team had none left and ended, they were already behind in that game, but ended their chance. I think they were down 2. That ended their chance to come back in that game, NCAA title game, will live forever. It's one of those gaffes that will live forever. And I think this one will too. The only difference is this wasn't in a national championship game, but I also think it's actually more unusual than phantom timeouts being called. Because phantom timeouts, I'm actually surprised that doesn't happen more often right? Because you're in a panic situation. The instinct is you're schooled and conditioned to ask for a timeout to get yourself out of trouble, even if the head coach has just told you, or one of the assistants, we got no timeouts left. This one is just so obvious, having 5 men on the court, that I don't even think we think about it or talk about it, because it's just never supposed to happen. This, too, will live on in sports infamy for quite some time. Top of the hour break, Gessling in about 30, Lavelle in about 90 minutes.